At first, we load the Google Earth application to observe our area of interest, which is the Indirasagar Reservoir in Madhya Pradesh, which is the central state of India. We see the water body. It is located to the southeast of Indore city. Let's observe the facts about the reservoir, and you'll be able to spot here that both in terms of the storage capacity as well as reservoir area, the Indirasagar Reservoir is the largest of its kind in India. We'll now visit ESA, European Space Agency's Copernicus Open Access Hub, which is a platform to access satellite imagery from this range of satellites, and zoom into our area of interest. Thereafter, we'll select it and then input the search parameters, beginning first with the sensing period, which is our timeline of the imagery which we desire. Currently, we'll input August 2022 to October 2022 as our timeline. Then we'll select Sentinel-2, which captures optical imagery, which is a particular style, a type of imagery, which looks much like a natural photograph. It is important for us to select a cloud cover which is low, because we want our imagery to be free from cloud pixels, and we'll use 2A type of a product, which signifies it has been pre-processed to a significant extent. These are our parameters, and we'll search it. What we'll find over here is that there are 4 products which match our criteria. So we'll zoom into the details of a particular type of product to see whether our area of interest is captured fully, as well as other imagery details such as cloud cover percentage, among others. Then we'll proceed to download the imagery once we are satisfied. We've downloaded 8 sets of satellite imagery and extracted it from their zip files. The way to read it is looking at the numerals. It begins with the year, followed by the month, and followed by the day of the month. 8 sets because from 2019 to 2022, which is 4 years, we've downloaded 2 imagery sets per year, one during the peak summer season and the other one during the peak monsoon season. And we'll use the handy platform SNAP by ESA, European Space Agency, to study our imagery. Let's load a single set of imagery from May 2019 onto the SNAP platform. We can do so directly from the zip file itself. An optical imagery contains several layers of information called bands, and we'll use 3 such bands to visualize the image in a natural color format: the B4, B3 and B2 band. Once the SNAP processes this, we will be able to see the image in a natural color format, just as it would appear to the human eye. A Sentinel-2 dataset of optical imagery contains 12 bands of information which carry reflectance values of varying wavelengths. The B8 band, which is 842 nanometer wavelength, appears just as this, and we can ascertain that there is a water body which is appearing as black in this particular reflectance band. Additionally, there are various layers of information apart from the reflectance values. We have a layer of the cloud values also, because we had selected 2A type of imagery, which is post-processed. So there are tiny pixels comprising of the thin cirrus cloud layer. But when we open the high proba cloud layer, there are much more white pixels, which signify where in the image the cloud pixels had been identified by European Space Agency's algorithms. And then we shall visualize all the 4 images side by side so as to see where the cloud pixels are concentrated at. Because we had selected imagery with a limited cloud value, these are not of a major concern to us. Now that we have visualized a particular image, we'll begin our next step, which is the first processing phase. As part of it, we'll load the graph builder. It is essentially a visual way to codify and depict our processing steps. I'll explain what these steps are later. Just you can note that the step begins with a read, which is reading the imagery, followed by resample, followed by subset, and followed by the write command. And obviously we will tell the software that it forms a sequence and connect the graph. What resampling essentially means is the image comprises of several bands of information, B1, B2, B3. These capture information in a particular pixel size. So while analyzing the imagery, it is important that the pixel sizes are comparable, are equivalent. So basically resampling tool is used for that. The subset is because the images are very large and to process them is very demanding. So we basically filter out what is not needed, both in terms of the bands of information within the imagery as well as in terms of the range of the image which is captured. So you'll see the red square in the map. The red square is the complete area of the satellite image, but our area of interest, which is the Indirasagar Reservoir, forms a subset, a area within that particular image. So we'll just use the coordinates for that particular square and load it. It's the yellow square within the red square, which is our area of interest. So this helps us to reduce our imagery size, which is useful during the processing phase. The write command is basically where our output would need to be stored, and it is important to organize it in a neat manner so that during the recall phase it is easier to validate and verify. Once all the parameters are input and we verified it, we can run the tool. The tool takes a lot of time to run. It obviously depends on the processing speed of your computer, and generally satellite imagery analysts prefer to work on the cloud because it is less demanding on their system, as well as the imagery can be processed quickly. But in our video, we have fast forwarded the processing so that we spend less time on the waiting. Product number 9 is our processed output. What we'll do is visualize it in a different way. Earlier we had visualized it in the natural color format. This time we'll use 3 different bands to visualize it in the land water format. How is it different? It is very clear that the water pixels are darker. You can say nearly black in color, whereas the land pixels are of a different shade. So it becomes very easy to visualize where the water body is. So visualizing it in different ways allows us to see the images from different perspectives. What we've done over here is loaded the batch processing tool, which is essentially the graph processing tool at a larger scale, wherein we can process all the 8 sets of imagery at once using the graph which we had built. Naturally, this process also takes a lot of time. On your left, you can see that the images have been loaded as soon as they are worked upon by the batch processing tool, which is running in the fast forward mode at the moment. The processing is complete. If you were to think about it conceptually, drought monitoring involves the monitoring of the changes in the water levels of the reservoir. We've taken images from 4 years, one image from the summer and one from the monsoon. The output of phase 1 can be used to visually see the trends, whether the water content is reducing from each summer season or from each monsoon season. As a matter of fact, the former is the odd numbered months and the latter is the even numbered months, and obviously you'll see a clear pattern if you were to visually analyze it. However, that's besides the point. We will use scientific techniques as developed by researchers to do this computation. These are known as water radiometric indices, and you can rewind the video at a later stage to read the contents of the PDF. To summarize it for you, the satellite images contains bands of information, which are the reflectances values captured by the satellite from the passive energy signal, which is the sun. Now, what these formulas essentially do is suppress certain features or enhance some other features of reflectances so that we are able to clearly distinguish water pixels from the non-water pixels. Obviously, there are multiple applications. We can distinguish land from water. We can distinguish soil from, let's say, a fully grown agricultural field. We can distinguish urban areas from non-urban areas. So, depending on the line of work, we can use different bodies of intelligence as developed by researchers. For this study, we will use 4 different tools to compare, visualize and analyze the changes in the water levels of the reservoir. The graph is essentially depicting that. We'll take the output from processing phase 1, and then we'll create these 4 bands signifying these output of the 4 radiometric indices tools. Then we will merge all these 4 bands into a single product and then write the product. The bands, the formula which is applied, you can just compare it. It is the same as was mentioned in the PDF. So NDWI is B3 minus B8 band divided by B3 plus B8 band. Likewise, we'll use the same formulas for the other 3 bands, MNDWI, MNDWI plus 5 and AWEI. Technically, there will be, researchers are better placed to understand what is the difference between one technique from the other. Usually these techniques have been developed or enhanced and improved over a period of time, and sometimes these techniques have certain specific properties wherein a particular region where there is a concentration of, let's say, urban infrastructure besides the water body, then it is better to use one technique over the another. For our study purposes, I can tell you that the output of each of these 4 techniques are largely similar, and it's not very easy to discern the changes of one technique to the other, which is good essentially. What we will do as a next step is not to process a single image using the graph builder. We'll instead use the batch processing tool once again, because that allows us to process all the 8 images in one shot, which saves a lot of time for us. What we will do is load the graph over here, and validate whether all the parameters are okay, because sometimes the software develops a few bugs here and there, and it's always a good practice to validate what you've created before running the tool, because the tool itself takes a long time to run and you do not wish to run a wrong processing command. So once we've done that and we've organized our output in a neat little folder, we will run the batch processing tool. It takes a lot of time, but I have forwarded it because we want to concentrate on the next portion, which is very important. Once we have the output of the batch processing, we will see how the pixel values in the output changes and what are the specific properties. So once you have each of the 8 output, you will see that there are 4 bands in each output: NDWI, MNDWI, MNDWI5 and AWEI. Now clearly you will be able to see over here in the NDWI band that white pixels signify water, whereas the non-white pixels signify the land. MNDWI5 is a different technique wherein the black pixels are water and the non-black pixels are land. We can stack them up side by side to just compare the area as well. But the next portion is very interesting and I'd like you to pay special attention to the top left of your screen. What we will do is compare the pixel information. You see it's currently invalid, but as I hover the cursor, you just notice how the pixel values change. You will clearly see that in the NDWI, MNDWI and AWEI bands, the white pixels will be positive, whereas the black pixels will be negative. And this will be vice versa for the MNDWI 5 band. So it clearly gives us an indication that there is a set pattern in terms of the pixel values. What we will plan to do is to extract this property itself. So what we are telling the software to do is wherever MNDWI5 is less than 0, the pixel value, you demarcate it for me. You see the demarcation has turned red and it basically captures the entire reservoir area. Isn't this cool? Because we've been able to delineate the water pixels from the imagery, which is what we had set out to do in the first phase. We can do the same for the other techniques as well, but we'll invert the formula as to greater than 0. So we can do it for NDWI as well as for the other 2 bands which capture the pixel information where the water pixels are white in color, which is greater than 0. Now, once these masks are created, we can use the tool to understand what is the area of pixels captured in the mask, which is the red area, which is what we'll do next. So mask number 1 is from 2019, the summer month. What is the area of the red pixels? Let's see. It is 497 square kilometers. Just note down this figure as I will do in my notepad. We'll rename the mask for better understanding. It was the NDWI mask and we'll see how it fares. Not much of a difference, 495 square kilometers. This is for 2019 May. Now obviously the next step, we'll quickly see whether there is a change over a particular time frame. So what we are doing over here is taking the summer month of 2022, which is 4 years later, to see whether there is some sort of a change over a period of time. Again, we'll create a mask, and what we'll do is measure the mask area. Wow, this mask from 2022 is 375 square kilometers, which is 120 square kilometers less water area than in 2019. That is dramatic, isn't it? Obviously, we just can't use these two pieces of information. We need to observe the trend over a period of time to see whether 495 is the benchmark, or was it an aberration, a deviation, an exception, or is the water levels, do they continuously stay at above 450 square kilometer levels, and just for 2022 it had reduced because of drought levels. We can do that, and I think I will show you that as well. Visually, you can see how the water level changes over these two time frames. It's very clear to observe that there is a marked reduction in the area. What we've used is the image from the summer month of 2021, and let's see what is the water area for this particular time frame. .473 square kilometers. So using these three pieces of information, what we can ascertain is that 2019 had a particular water level, 2021 had a largely similar water level, although one can argue that it is 20 square kilometers is a large area, and the drought essentially was affecting 20 square kilometer reduction in the water content. But 2022 definitely was a marked reduction, basically. What we will do thereafter is to quickly extract all this information, because doing certain processing steps on Snap is difficult, so we'll use two different softwares to do it. What currently you are seeing on the screen is all the NDWI masks from the 8 time frames. We can do all these kinds of visual analysis as well, but this is an important step. The software even allows us to compare the pixel values for all the 8 images in a single step. So once we've used the time series tool, we can just hover our cursor over an image, and because the images are linked, the cursors can be basically compared side by side for each of the images, the pixel values essentially, and then we can study how the pixel values changes over a particular area. So you see this graph on your left, so that comprises the pixel values. So the time frame is from September 2019. I think 1 month, the 1 month values has been missed by the software, but that's okay. That's besides the point. What I'm essentially trying to say to you is that there are different ways of studying the satellite images. And obviously, because the summer months and the monsoon months are there, there is a certain cyclicity in the output. Now that we have completed phase 2 of our analysis, we will progress to the final phase of analysis on Snap software, the phase 3, which entails the creation of a single water mask. what we are doing in this step is to combine the output of all the 4 methods which we had used to delineate water pixels in the previous steps into a single new band. How do we do it? We tell the software that if a pixel is categorized as water in all the 4 bands, then you please categorize it as a water pixel in the newest bands. If, for example, the pixel is categorized as water in just 2 of the 4 bands, then you do not categorize it as water. So what we are doing is taking the best case scenario, wherein if a pixel is categorized only as water across all the 4 methods, then only we are categorizing it as a water pixel. So this helps us to refine our output in a much better way. Also, we are saving the file in a new format, as you would have observed. We are saving it in a GeoTIFF format. The reason why we are doing it so is because we will use the output in a different software, which is GIS, which is Geographic Information System. It's a powerful tool which not only is useful in terms of analyzing satellite imagery, but also in terms of refining it, processing it, as well as other mapping and location analytics workflow. As you will see on your screen, the water masks have been created. They are just a bunch of black and white. The white are the water pixels, whereas the black are the non-water pixels, or they are no data values. The output is ready in our folder as well because we've exported it over there. What we will do is to clean it up a little bit so that it becomes more manageable. Rather than the elongated name, we'll only name it as per the date of the image, followed by a suffix which is a anagram or a shortened version of watermask, WM. We will use 2 GIS softwares later on in the video to further refine our output. What you will perhaps realize is, once you see the remaining portion of the video, is that while the analysis steps are obviously important, a lot of effort needs to be put in terms of managing this particular data set on a GIS software so that the output becomes more meaningful, interpretable, organized, etc. So we'll use QGIS first because QGIS is a free open source GIS tool. It is anybody and everyone can use it. It's a free of cost as a platform. And what we'll do first is to load all the 8 imagery output from processing step number 3 on Snap into this particular project of QGIS. The layers are loaded, and as you will see on your left, the values range from 0 to 1, although I can tell you that there are only 2 values. It's binary. It is either 0 or it is a 1. It doesn't range from 0 to 1. The reason why it reflects so is because the software is reading this particular layer as a raster file, which it essentially is. A raster file is basically a visualization of the entire image on a pixel by pixel in a pixel by pixel manner. This is not how we intend to visualize it, which is why the first step which we will use on QGIS is to polygonize this particular raster. So essentially what we are doing over here is to tell the software that we are not interested in seeing the pixel values across the full imagery dataset. We want to build a new shape only out of the water pixels. This is what we need, right? We only need to monitor and visualize the water pixels. We are not concerned with the remaining portion of the image. Again, with the importance of organizing the folders is something which I need to stress upon. You'll notice that we've created a lot of output, and it's easy to lose track of what we do if we do not organize the information in a proper way. Once we've done that, we'll run the tool and fast forward it so that we can see the polygonized output of the raster layers. This is the first step which we'll do on QGIS. The layers are being loaded on your left. The nomenclature is PO, which stands for polygonize, followed by the date, followed by the watermark suffix. We'll remove the previous layers so that we'll only have our new output on the screen. It's not very legible what the output is, but essentially you will see that if we were to scan the attributes, you will see the pixel values, which is a range of 1 and zeros. But then you see the outline of the reservoir in each of the 8 outputs on your screen. It's color coded in a different way so that one can understand or distinguish between one images and the other. As the next step, what we will do is to basically tell the software that you eliminate all the pixels which are not carrying the value of 1. So eliminate all the pixels which are carrying a value of 0. So we'll use it by using the select by attribute tool in QGIS. We'll select all the layers, and again we'll do the processing. We'll ensure that the parameters are correctly filled up. So the attribute was dn, which was as per the imagery dataset, and we'll say that where dn is equals to 1, you please keep that and remove everything else. It's a very straightforward step, and now once we've done it, you can see it in the background that the pixel area, which is 1, which is the water reservoir, has been colored in a different shade, which is a yellow color across all the 8 images. So this is a shape basically which has been created. We've polygonized it first, and then we've extracted the pixel values which were 1. As a next step, what we'll do is extract these particular values. What we had done in the previous step was to just select those values. We had not extracted them. So this is just a extended step to complete what we had set out to do, which was to extract the particular pixels. We are ready to run the tool. We'll remove all the older layers so that we can see the newest layers on our screen. As you would see, all the unnecessary bits of information have been removed. All we are left with are the shapes of the water reservoirs across all the 8 time periods, and there is a base map underneath all these layers. This particular step is kind of premature, but then sequentially it made sense for me to include in this part of the video. So what we are doing over here is basically merging the output of all the 8 layers into a single layer. Why do we do so? As I said, we are doing this step much in advance. The importance of this step you will realize at a later moment in the video. So to your left, you will see a new layer, which is Indirasagar merged, has been created as an output in this particular processing step. Once we open the attribute layer, we will see that all the information across all the 8 layers has been combined into this particular layer, and the area and perimeter values are also computed in this particular layer. As a next step, what we'll do is to export these particular 9 layers, the 8 individual layers of the extracted values as well as the 9th merged layer, into a different software. Why am I doing so? I could have easily done the next steps in QGIS itself, but then I'm much more familiar using the next software, which is ArcGIS Pro. It is a well-known software in the industry, and I find it better to use it. I'm much more comfortable to use it. What we are doing as part of this processing step is to use a Q package plugin to generate shape files. This is a particular file format which obviously can be used in QGIS as well, but then I've exported it in this format so that I can readily use it in our next software which we will use, which is Esri's ArcGIS Pro. Unlike QGIS, this is a paid software, at least the full version. If you wish to trial it out, you can obtain a trial version access from its website as well. And GIS professionals across the world use this particular software, and it's very good in what it does. Now that we have opened ArcGIS software, we'll load the shape files. So it has an extension of .shp. We'll load it on the map view. We need to do a little bit of reordering so that the base map comes right at the bottom and all the other layers come right at the top in a sequential manner. The file name is EXPO. It essentially stands for Exported Polygonized Images. Again, we've created a separate folder in our system so as to demarcate the processing steps. We'll also load the 9th layer, which was the merged layer also. And you'll realize now why we had derived this particular layer. If you were to see the area values in the attribute table of this particular layer, you will see there are 8 very high values. These are essentially the area in a square meter format. So the first value essentially means 851 square kilometers, followed by 848, 849 square kilometers. What we are doing is creating a new mask which captures the largest reservoir size. Why are we doing so? We'll see in the next steps. But for the moment, what we are doing is selecting just the first line item, which is the largest piece of information from the particular polygon, and extracting it and creating a buffer around it, a buffer of 30 meters, so as to make a new outline out of the image of the reservoir. To reveal to you why we use this particular processing step is because the image is of a particular dimension. It captures the reservoir, but it also captures tiny pools of water around the reservoir as part of the reservoir itself. We do not wish to do that. We basically wish to only use the information of the reservoir's pool of water and not of the surrounding areas, which is why we are basically creating a outline around just the reservoir. In the GIS software, we will use this particular derived layer to clip out all the unneeded water body information. So to put it in a better way, in QGIS we had removed all the land information, as in non-water information, which was not needed. In this particular step, we will remove all the water information which we do not need from the particular leftovers of the last step. You'll visually understand what I am doing once we run this clip tool. What we are saying is we want to clip the image using the new buffered image which we had created. So the clip has been created. You'll visually understand what we have done in just a few seconds from now. You'll see that there are 921 features in the attribute table in the clipped layer. When compared to the original layer, you'll be surprised that there were 2000 plus pieces of water bodies within the image. So this particular step, we've reduced the pieces, the fragments of water bodies by a significant extent, and visually it is, you'll see the difference just right now, wherein the much of the extra information has been eliminated from the image. So now that we've done it on one image, we'll quickly run this same tool for all the other 7 images, so that what we are left with is strictly the water pixels in and slightly maybe around the reservoir. So this step, the beauty of this step is we've used the information from the dataset to isolate only the reservoir. How did we do so? Is because the reservoir is the largest water body in our dataset. So we just isolated the dataset which carried the largest square kilometers of area, and used it as a layer to clip off all the unnecessary noise of the remaining water bodies in our imagery dataset. So the new clipped layers have been created. It looks very quick right now, but then I have fast forwarded the video, and we'll eliminate all the other layers. So you'll understand that once new layers are created, it becomes too noisy. So it's important for us to just filter out all the information which is not needed, so that what we are left with is something which is useful. As a next step, what we are telling the software to do is to merge all the information in a single layer into a single line item, so that we get an individual figure for the size of the reservoir. So while there were 525 different small pools of water around the reservoir, obviously the first one was the biggest and the most important, but then what we are doing is, rather than seeing 500 plus or 900 plus line items, we are telling the software is combine all the output into a single line item, which will use as a evidence of the size of the water body. You will see in the fast forwarded version of the video that all the attributes are being merged into a single line item. All the layers are now ready. And once again we feel the need to rename our layers. This time, instead of a DDMMYY format, we'll use a very clear format which tells us the name. Also, we've arrived at the final section of our video. We'll do a little bit of cleanup, beginning first with converting the area, which is currently in square meters, to square kilometers, because it is much more easier to understand and interpret. Alongside, we will add the date column as well, because it is easier to discern from the attribute table itself as to what period of imagery we are currently studying. Once these two fields have been created, we will reorder them so that they appear right at the beginning of the attribute table, as they are the most important parameters for us. As a next step, we'll manually feed in the date 23rd October 2022, which is from the monsoon month, is our last imagery from our data set of 8 images. For the square kilometer, we have to quantitatively compute it. We'll divide the area, which is currently in square meters, by 10 to the power 6 to arrive at the area in square kilometers. Once we've entered the formula, we'll hit OK and we'll compute it. So 849 square kilometers is the area of Indirasagar Reservoir in 23rd October 2022. We'll replicate this step to all the remaining 7 images in a fast forward manner right now. I hope you've understood and appreciated the video so far. I have done a variety of geointelligence workflows, and you can spot it on my YouTube channel as well. Although I'd prefer if you were to visit my blog page, which is www.mapmyops.com/geo, and you will be able to read a wide variety of articles from satellite imagery to location analytics to operations workflows as well. GIS tools are very advanced location analytics platform, and while we are just using it for satellite imagery processing currently, we can also use it for a wide variety of mapping and location intelligence workflows as well. At the moment, we are just validating whether we've accomplished all the steps for all the layers accurately, which indeed we have done so. So we'll close it and move to the next step, which is to rename the layer in a more meaningful manner. So we are doing so because to eliminate any sort of a doubt which may arise in the minds of a reader. So for example, while in the northern hemisphere the summer month is May, that is not the case for the southern hemisphere, where the summer and monsoons are typically reversed. So we are just suffixing the season alongside the date as well over here. Also, it is important to save the project every once in a while so that the changes which we've made are stored. Sometimes the system switches off, or if the software switches off, then you have a lot of heartburn because much of your effort may get lost. So it's always a good idea to save the project every once in a while. As part of the next step, what we are doing is merging the new layers into a single layer, which will comprise the area in square kilometers for all the 8 layers of our images. The reason why we are creating this merged layer is because it will be useful for us while creating a bar chart during the final processing step of our video. At the moment, you will see a mismatch of lines of outlines of reservoir overlaid on the purple fill. But that's not important. What we have to see is the attribute table, and it's reflecting correctly. All the layers have been merged together very well. Our next processing step is to clean up the map symbology. By clean up, I don't mean something is wrong in the way it is displayed. What I mean is, for our analysis purposes, the current way of display may not be completely suitable. So what we are doing right now is to remove the color fills in the middle of the reservoir. We just want the outlines to be present in the layers and not the internal color fills. After all, if you were to think about it, what we are essentially wanting to do is wanting to see how the outline has changed over a period of time, because clearly we are not able to see the depth of the water from this view. We are only able to see the extent of the water body from this view. So just by keeping the outline over the base map is sufficient for us to make meaningful analysis from the data set. Symbology is often an overlooked aspect in map making, but over a period of time, I have learned the importance of it. Symbolizing a map correctly helps us to convey information in a meaningful manner. Currently, we have 4 imagery layers activated from the summer months. They are of different colors. So we can observe the change in this manner, although I will prefer to observe it in a or present it to you in a different manner, which is just by keeping two layers on. One is from the summer month of 2019 and the other one is from the summer month of 2022. In this way, what we are trying to do is to see how the outline has changed over a period of time. Do we feel the need to make a little change? I think we do. What we'll do is change the color of the base layer, which is 2019, to blue, and the drought affected layer, because we know that 2022 was affected by drought, to red. So the red color is more signifying of a drought. So it makes much more sense. I hope you concur with me. Now we are able to clearly see which areas of the reservoir have shrunk over these 4 years, or rather from 2019 to 2022, because the impact of change was only felt in 2022. So this was a visual form of analysis. Now we'll do analysis in a chart based form subsequently. At this point in time, we are just doing a little bit of refinements. We are adding new columns wherein we will mention what is the seasonality also. Alongside the date. So not only are we renaming the layer to make it clearer, we are also renaming the attributes within the layers attribute table. The date type column is just a combination of the date and the type column. So 2019 W stands for 2019 wet, which is 2019 monsoon. I could have renamed it to 2019 M as well. The D stands for dry, which is summer. Right, we've completed with the cleanup steps, so we'll form the bar chart. This is the most important section of the video, in that you will see how the drought has materialized over these 4 years. The chart is ready for interpretation. We can see the values as well. Visually, we are able to see that the drought has been most at its peak in the summer season of 2022, if we were to only compare the summer months. We've already proved that during the snap stage. When it comes to monsoon, the year 2021 appears to be the most drought affected. So this chart is gives a very deep insight as to how the drought has materialized over a period of 4 years. Now, we've used 4 years. Maybe researchers can use a longer time frame so as to understand the patterns in much more detail as well.